So I'm just so impressed with this team because it seems like they've been tested in many different ways. The first week, there were so many blitzes, and Jalen Hurts used his legs. And then the Minnesota Vikings dared him to throw with his arm, and he beat them, albeit some very soft coverage, but he did a damn good job. And then you had the 50-50 ball game when Devonta Smith is doing his thing. The offensive line and Miles Sanders last week was outrageous.
But I just don't see this being a game in which they're going to be, just totally wrapped up in what the Cardinals are going to try to do to them.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at, is this better now, by the way?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had to hit a button on my end. So I'm just so impressed with this team because it seems like they've been tested in many different ways. The first week, there were so many blitzes, and Jalen Hurts used his legs. And then the Minnesota Vikings dared him to throw with his arm, and he beat them, albeit some very soft coverage, but he did a damn good job. And then you had the 50-50 ball game when Devonta Smith is doing his thing. The offensive line and Miles Sanders last week was outrageous, and the defense helped out tremendously too. It's like whenever they need to show that they could do it in a different way, the versatility is there. And I expect the same damn thing to happen when they're in Arizona.
Now, here's where my concern comes in for this game. And I know the Eagles defense practices against Jalen Hurts, but we've seen some of the Eagles practices. For me, got to go all the way back to preseason. Barrett may get that or a little bit more often. Johnny Mac there every day. They've not faced anybody like Kyler Murray. Basically, they faced four statues as quarterbacks, and I was kind of surprised that Trevor Lawrence was as much of a statue as he was. When he attempted to move, all he did was drop the football. So they haven't faced a quarterback who can make a play on the second level, outside the pocket, creating and making it up as he goes along. Does that scare you a little bit? That the Eagles, while they may have faced them somewhat in practice at half speed, three-quarter at best, that the Eagles haven't faced a quarterback who's got athletic abilities?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't expect Jonathan Gannon to do anything like this, but I'm just using it as an example. I thought the Lions came out pretty heavy with, okay, let's just throw a ton at Jalen Hurts, and then he was able to makeshift some things and then beat him when plays were just there with his legs. And, I don't expect him to go that route, but I don't know how Gannon is going to look. I'm fascinated. I despise things I saw last year and even in week one, but he has really countered all those thoughts for me. So, I think I'm expecting him to push the right buttons because he has done a good job since week one after they had the big lead. And I'm with you. Like, yeah, there's some concern, and I've never made this statement I trust Gannon before, but I might be starting to get there.
So let me ask you this then. What is your overall assessment on what's Gannon done in the last week? Is it necessarily his coaching, or is it the players that he has?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you get the talent, and it's there. Now, I was speaking to Jeff Mosher, and he said something to me a few weeks back about how Gannon just didn't trust his players in the past, and that was maybe holding him back. And it's upsetting to me when I hear something like that, because I thought it was true, right? It's like, even though there was a lack of talent in previous years, there was probably more you could have done with that, even though it might still get toasted. I just didn't understand the concept and the belief. It's like, you got to run with what you got, right? You got to go down swinging, if you will. And I think that now it's easier to trust his guys. He's starting to trust his guys more. And of course, when you have that type of talent, I mean, you can go through the board. Jordan Davis is eating people alive at the line of scrimmage when he is in there. Limited snaps, but you can see what he can do. And, BG and Fletcher seems to be drinking from the fountain of youth. And Reddick, the addition, is great. So, it's nice to have that type of talent. And I'm even impressed when you lose a Darius Slay or when Avonte Maddox can't play. I didn't hear Christian Kirk's name all game long, and that was one of my biggest highlighted matchups when he knew Avonte Maddox wasn't there. So, it's a combination of trust, I think, from the DC, but with the players, it's easier for him to do that.
Yeah, but Josiah Scott did get beat a couple times last week, and as you just said, Gannon likes to go down with what he's got. At least according to those covering the team, they think that Josiah is going to be in for Maddox again this week. No formal announcement on either the injury to Maddox keeping him out of the game or who's going to replace, but it looks like they're going to give Josiah Scott another week at that position. Barrett just said before you hopped aboard, he'd throw Chauncey Gardner down there into the slot and put someone else at safety. Do you think Gannon has the capability to, on the fly, go, all right, screw this, we're going to go in another direction?
Yeah, that's a great question because I could understand going with Josiah Scott in the beginning and then, if need be, on your toes in game, let's make adjustments. Now, they didn't have to do that last time. And even though it started out slow for him, but it got a little better, I guess, maybe as the game went. It wasn't as ugly as maybe some of the things I saw early, although it could have been 21-0. And maybe, I don't know, does the game play out different if Trevor Lawrence hits the bomb for another touchdown before the Eagles started coming back? But I'm okay with all the options. Like, if you did move C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the slot, and I'm sure it's very tempting knowing what he did in the past, and then put Kayvon Wallace, is this more of, is Kayvon Wallace not ready for that yet? Is that what they're seeing when they watch Kayvon Wallace play? Do they expect a bigger jump? I don't think Blankenship is the answer there, but is this less about maybe the slot corner and more about their options at safety? I don't know. I'm just spitballing and seeing what sticks here.
That's exactly what I think it is. I think it's more so Kayvon Wallace, an indictment on him not being ready or if he'll ever be ready. But, I mean, I'm looking at their weapons, and I just don't see a lot to really put a lot of fear in me as far as on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, I really think that you can see Kazir White having a big day, you know what I'm saying, in almost a spy capacity with, Murray running around, I mean, I know they're going to mush rush, try to keep him in the pocket. He can't see over those tall guys and the big offensive lineman and defensive lineman. So he's going to want to get out and play frenetically. I think if you rush this guy to the way you would, if you get, at quarterback level at the defensive end, start collapsing the pocket as opposed to keep going up the field, do little things like that. But I see Kazir White being the impact player of this game. And if he can run with Kyler, and I think he can, being a former safety and the speed that he has, I think he'll have the big day.
Oh, no doubt. I could see the same exact thing. He's incredible. I mean, I knew because you could see some reaction with the Chargers fans, even though I didn't know that there were any Chargers fans out there. They were like, are you kidding me? Why would you let him leave? And this and that. It's like, all right, I think we got a little something here. You could tell that they were upset by it. But, even him and C.J. Edwards, if we're just going to look at the linebackers, I don't even know if T.J. Edwards is getting enough love for what he's done. I mean, he
definitely hasn't. He definitely hasn't.
It's unbelievable. I mean, undrafted out of Wisconsin, this and that. I mean, it's crazy to see how he's transformed into this. But, yeah, I think you're right with Kazir White. He might be the one afterwards where we go, damn. I mean, it was unreal to see what he did to Kyler Murray. And I don't even know if their head coach is mentally ready to do this because he's all over the place. And I don't think they're going to have the approach, the proper approach to be able to handle what JG, Sirianni, and Steichen. So if we look at the coaches and the matchups there, I mean, I think the Eagles are by far significantly stronger.
Here's my concern with Kazir White. If you're going to keep him as the spy to make sure Kyler Murray doesn't take off upfield, and he's athletic enough that he could probably keep Murray in front of him and keep him from breaking off 20-yard runs, who's covering Zach Ertz this weekend?
Look, I guess you could make that argument with anything, right? When you go through the percentage game, it's like if we take away X, Y, and Z, someone's going to have an option. Can you win if their offense is through Zach Ertz? Like, if that's where and Zach Ertz is a damn good player, maybe the answer is no. I'm just laying it out where if you take away certain pieces, Kyler Murray's legs, do you play the percentage game that you'd rather take away that if you have to live with Zach Ertz maybe getting some throws underneath, especially knowing that with Jonathan Gannon's philosophy, he's okay if you don't get beat over the top. If Zach Ertz is going to take some throws underneath and gain a couple yards here and there, I'll take that and live with it, and we can see if Kyler Murray makes a mistake where Bradbury can pounce on an unreal interception down the sideline or something and kind of hope and pray. Because we know that he likes more snaps equals more possibilities for something to occur, whether it's a bad snap, a fumble, an interception, and he'd love to play those number games if you're Jonathan Gannon. So, maybe that's something you live with, right? I mean, the alternative is you take away Zach Ertz, and then Kyler Murray can run around and dance around. So which one would you rather want?
You're right, man. I mean, it's apples, oranges is all fruit. Just pick which side you want. But then let's look at our offensive side of the ball. I can see them doing the same thing with Simmons. Isaiah Simmons being the guy that he is. He runs a 4.3 40, 4.4. I see him kind of manning up on Hurts. As a spy type of technique. But other than that, man, I think the secondary is poor. With the weapons that we have, I think this is going to be a more conventional play calling game with, Hurts just either handing it off as a regular run or even drop back pass and not really going and read option or RPO, simply because if you saw as the game wore on, they started hitting Hurts on these zone reads. And I can see that becoming a major, major problem as we go more and more into the year when, all right, we're going to say, forget about that. Let's just hit Hurts every single time. Maybe we get him out the game. We'll take the little run, 10-yard run here, 5-yard run here with Miles Sanders, but let's keep hitting Hurts. Maybe we could change how he's starting to read things.
Yeah, it's very possible, but I guess then at that point, if you keep talking about those yards with Miles Sanders or anything in the run game, can this offensive line will you to victory at that point? It's like, okay, that's cute. Watch this. And I know we don't know the updated status on Jordan Mailata or anybody yet. I don't know what they're doing over at left tackle, but, if you're going to run the ball, can Jack Driscoll hold his own there at the left tackle position? I mean, I think he started out a little slow there, but got better as the game went on. At that point, yeah, I think it just comes down to, you're right, they're going to try their best. I'm sure a lot of other teams have tried their best, too, to stop what the Eagles have been doing offensively, and Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni seem to have the answers. At that point, I rely on your bread and butter, and I think your bread and butter is your trenches, and, you can find a way to maximize what you do so damn well to still grind this puppy out in any way, shape, or form. So, I would, at that point, I'd say, all right, beat our best, and then Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, and the crew take over.
We've certainly not gotten final word on who's going to be at left tackle for the Eagles. Doesn't look like it's going to be Jordan Mailata. They're definitely going to give him the week off and hopefully get him up to speed for the Cowboy game the week after. I was impressed with Driscoll. I thought he played really well last week to be on the opposite side of where he usually plays, to be outside rather than inside, to be able to make that kind of jump and play to the level he did. I was very impressed with him. But you got J.J. Watt coming in this week. And he's the only one, and I mean only one, on the defensive line of the Cardinals that I have any fear of. If that's the case, and they're going to specifically match him up against Driscoll every single play, do you give him his props? Do you keep a tight end and double team? Do you keep a back in to make sure he doesn't get there? Because I'll take Jalen Hurts against everybody else out there to make a big play, but I'm just not going to let J.J. Watt beat me. Do you think Steichen and Sirianni will handle it that way?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you got to understand the circumstances for sure. And, I think that they do put together a game plan where, all right, if things are starting to go south here and go sour on us, we're going to have those in-game adjustments to make sure we put our quarterback in a better position for sure. And look, Jeff Stoutland is a magician. I mean, I swear to God, I think I could line up at left tackle and somehow hold my own if I get 1 week with Jeff Stoutland. The guy's ridiculous. So I think that they're going to be just fine. That's one area where each week I honestly just don't ever think about. And I take that for granted sometimes. And it's funny because I lived up in Boston for a couple years when I was playing hockey, lived with so many Massachusetts people, and they would watch Tom Brady every single week. I'd have to listen to them. And I was like, you just got to embrace what you have because one day it's going to be gone. Those same people I go back to now. But it's like for the first time last week, I said, I have to sit here and acknowledge what we have in Jeff Stoutland because there's going to be a time, and there was almost a pretty recent time when he was going to go back to college or do whatever over at Alabama. It's like, we got to appreciate this because one day it's not going to be here, and we are so spoiled. I really believe that there's been Eagles fans growing up that have no idea what it's like to have to go through whatever Eli Manning was going through in New York. I mean, you just don't understand. It's absurd to have this type of success with no matter who they throw at the offensive line, they have success. So to your point, I'm just going to bank on the fact that I've never been, except for, I guess, when Carson Wentz was in the back of the pot, but they were like 4 guys and people were trying to fix their gloves while getting sacked. So that's a little different of a story. Majority of the time, they're okay in that department.
You're right, man. That's an embarrassment of riches when you talk about, Coach Stoutland, his ability to coach. And actually, in all actuality, my left guard from college is now the offensive line coach for Alabama. Eric Wolford, he's actually my left guard when I was in college. So, kudos to Stoutland staying up here and giving my dog
that's right,
your starting job down there. But
that's right.
I like the fact that this team doesn't, feed into everything. I was talking to Jody earlier about this where, you saw the way Jalen Hurts reeled everybody back. Look, aren't you guys going to talk to me about their defense? No, this is a good team we're about to play against. You can't just look past our opponent. We're not looking past them. I thought he kind of reined things in just to show the type of attitude that they're taking going forward. We still got rent to pay for this week. We can't worry about next week. Let's worry about this week we have right here. And I thought that was kudos to him. I put kudos to him that he reined everybody back. Like, all right, let's talk about Arizona's defense.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's funny because normally when he's speaking to the media, he gives us just like the boring cliches, the rent is due every day. But then you start to see these locker room videos and his excitement. It's like a whole different person.
Right.
I wish we got some of that sometimes as a fan base. But it's ironic because when he was getting asked some questions about whether it was the hoodie or the Manning cast, he's like, aren't we going to talk some football? And it's like, well, you normally don't give us a lot, but I think that really does. It's more about the message to the fellas, more about the message to the locker room. And,
right.
The leadership is crazy. If you remember in the beginning of the year, Jason Kelce came out and said, yeah, there's some guys, he even took a little shot at Nick Sirianni, like, hey, we haven't done anything yet. We got to tone this down. It's just about the way they handle themselves. It reminds me of a team that just gets it. We've seen how a team that gets it looks like back in 2017. So we can kind of use that as the example and something to kind of go back to. It's like, oh yeah, that does reflect how they handled their business as well. And yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it really does. It keeps everybody molded to, hey, fellas, I mean, we got one here. We can't overlook this. I know we're riding high. And it reflects even what Miles Sanders said after the game, too, because he was asked, what's the best part about being 4-0? 5-0. 5-0. 5-0. I love it. Sometimes you can get sucked in too much to what they say. I think you have to peel it to certain layers of what makes sense. But you could just hear from I just mentioned Sanders, you mentioned Jalen Hurts, and then, of course, Jason Kelce. They get it. Whatever it is when it comes to winning, they get it. And you're seeing that out on the field.
If you want to be 5-0, you got to get to 4-0 first. And the Eagles are the only team in the National Football League that has done that. All right, Hunter. They haven't won a game out there in Arizona in a dog's age. Never won one in that new stadium. Only one game of consequence because Jalen Hurts played in it. Kyler Murray played in it. The coach of the Cardinals coached in it. All right, yeah, it was against Doug on a struggling year where he was shown the door. But they haven't been able to go out into Arizona and win. How applicable is that to this week's game, knowing that players, only a portion, coaches, only 1 out of 2, but both the quarterbacks played in a game that the Cardinals put up a 30-some-odd spot a couple of years ago? Is that a factor at all that the Eagles have not been able to find a way to win in Arizona for a long time?
I'm going to go with no, even though I know there's variables when you fly out west, right? Your body clocks and all that. When there's a trend to a certain degree, there tends to be something behind it. But at the same time, the other half of me goes, well, it's a new team, right? Like Jalen Hurts and the way that this team is playing right now with A.J. Brown getting you 100 yards consistently and Devonta Smith and Miles Sanders running the hardest I've ever seen. This is the best version of Miles Sanders that I've ever seen. Just very poised at the line, reading the gaps properly. There were always details within his game that I thought he was lacking that was keeping him from going to the next level when it comes to staying in bounds or going out of bounds with the clock moving. I didn't think he thought the game well, and at this point, he's just doing the best I've seen. So when you factor all that in, I don't know how we can look at the way this team is playing and then say, oh, yeah, well, remember when Doug got fired and they lost? These two teams are the same exact way. So, I mean, there are trends and reasons why you always talk about teams that live out in L.A., fly into the East Coast on back-to-back weeks and, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when that ball is snapped or kicked off for the first time, I don't think any of those statistics are relevant to, the style of play that we're seeing led by Nick Sirianni.
Up. Did we lose Barrett's mic?
There you go. There we go. Sorry about that. I wholeheartedly believe in Doug's. Nick's ability to go out there and get guys focused and going in the right direction. I don't doubt anything about that. I don't doubt these players are not going to go in there and give their best effort against this Arizona team. But I just think they're just so fundamentally sound. I said at the beginning of the year when we played Detroit. After we played Detroit, I knew everybody's going to reflect on what they did in that Detroit game, saw how much meat they left on the bone, and get back to work and and look at each other, to the man and say, all right, we didn't play well, and it didn't matter who they played against. I said it before. I said they could have played against Buffalo, which I think is the best team in the league right now, Buffalo, and they'd have beat Buffalo because of the way they prepared, the way I thought that they should have went out there and played. So I'm kind of thinking that same mindset right now. this team doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who they play against. They're going to police themselves, make sure they're ready to play as opposed to who their next opponent is or anything else. So I just think they take care of themselves in-house. I won a Super Bowl with that same type of direction. I knew when I went out to practice on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that I played against the best team on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So when I played on Sunday, it didn't matter who was out there. And I think they had that same focus and that same intensity level in that locker room.
I agree. And, I don't want to downplay Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and the guys that have been there. But, come on. When we had Carson Wentz here, it was all about the intangibles, and he doesn't relate to the guys. And, no, I don't know. It didn't feel connected as now you see the alternative, right? And it's this exactly. It's the way the quarterback handles himself. And the guy's obsessed with football. He goes home, he thinks about football. He's at work. He's at work all day long. It seems he's the last one that leaves. He's there doing football. He's working out. He's watching film. He's doing this. It's the dedication that he does, and it doesn't resonate with me. I don't think the cliches and whatnot, but it's whatever he's doing in the room, which I do think is different than the rent is due. You can see that. Maybe that's the difference. So maybe that's the connection level where they know they get a different version of Jalen Hurts than everybody else. So when he shows that side, you could just see how the team reacts to it. But I don't think it stems from the way the quarterback handles himself. They could win. They're undefeated, and every day they talk about how they need to get better, and they're not sharp enough yet, and there's still so many things to fine-tune, and they could be significantly better in the passing game or whatever it is. They're never satisfied even after pounding a team into the dirt. And look, I think the Vikings are going to be a good team. Not anything like spectacular, amazing, but a good team. And when you look at how they play, Justin Jefferson couldn't do a damn thing against Darius Slay. Not a thing. This guy shines all the time, and he's consistently doing his dance in the end zone, and Jalen Hurts mocks him. There's just something about the swag, the approach, and the way they know that there's so much more left in the tank after they dominate opponents. And that's a killer attitude that the Super Bowl kind of teams have.
All right, Hunter B., I need 2 score predictions from you. Here's what I need. The score at the end of the third quarter and then the final score, because that'll tell us a little something about how that fourth quarter goes, because the Eagles finally got a point. Hey, they scored in the fourth quarter this past week, extending a lead, helping to put the game away. Good on them. Prior to that, way ahead, we're cruising the fourth quarter, and it's led to a victory as well. So I need the score at the end of 3 quarters and the score at the end of 4 quarters of this week's Cardinals-Eagles game.
Okay, how about this? They'll have 24 points. It will be 24-10 at the end of the third quarter, and it'll finish 27-17. Okay. 27-17 victory out in Arizona. We're flying back. We're 5-0, and we're loving it. And the second half points, by the way, real quick, it didn't bother me too much because I don't think that they called the same game when they score all those points in the second quarter, have the big lead at half. I think you call a different game at that point, and not that you're taking your foot off the gas. There was that one series where they went 3 and out, and I forget, some of these games are meshing together. It was, maybe that was Washington or whatever game that was. Yeah, but, okay, at the end of the day, if it's a 17-17 game in the third quarter, I think you're getting a different style of the Eagles offense at that point. I'm not going to complain about how they were lack of scoring in the second quarter because they're the second half. They're dominating games. And if you're dominating, it's not as if you're the Broncos and you're winning 11-10 or whatever it is. They're a mess, right? It's not like they're winning games in ugly ways. They're handling business to such a strong level that I'm not too worried about that stuff.
Yeah, they're winning.
Well, I know this is Birds 365, but are we playing on Sunday or we already wrapped the series up on Saturday?
I think if the Phillies are going to win, unfortunately, I wish it could be a 2-game sweep for the Phillies, but it's got to go 3. And at that point, I don't know how it'll shape up, but you're going to have Ranger Suarez on the bump for game 3. All right, it's going to be on the road nighttime, 8:37. And the Phils bring it back to South Philadelphia in the NLDS. I'm just spitballing here, but that's what my gut tells me.
All right, let's roll.
I said this 7 or 8 weeks ago. Nobody agreed. Nobody listened to me. I stick by it. Wheeler 1, Ranger 2, Nola 3. You win with Wheeler in game 1. You take your shot with Ranger in game 2. Maybe finds a way. Maybe you win 6-5. And then you got Nola ready to start the next series. If not, you got him for game number 3.
That sounds like a damn good plan, Jody.
I've been floating it for 7 weeks, and everybody goes, Oh, you can't ask Nola to not know whether he's going to pitch game 2 or game 3. That's complete. He's been pretty damn good here in September/October.
Pitched his best
Better than
game.
he's ever been before.
Yes,
This
he
is his
did.
best game the last time he was on the mound. So yeah, that sound good to me.
I'll do that if Wheeler wins. If Wheeler loses,
That's the whole
then,
thing. Wheeler wins, then you come with Ranger in game 2, and if you can wait till game 3 with Nola, you do it. Wheeler loses. Oh yeah, Nola's got to start game 2. You can't go down with Ranger on the mound and Nola sitting on the sidelines watching. That was my point of emphasis for the last 7 weeks. But nobody listened to me, including
I'm
my
using that
buddy
now.
Rob Thompson, my guy Rob Thompson. The hell with you, McDonald. All right, we got far afield. We got to get back to birds. We appreciate you jumping on, Hunter. Thanks, bud.
Thanks,
we will
guys.
get back with you in about a month or so. Thanks, pal.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.